The infant's wail cut through the January wind like a knife through butter, and Ethan Sanders knew he was drowning in a life he had never imagined living alone. The rancher stood in the doorway of his modest home just outside Centralia, Kansas, holding his 3-month-old son against his chest while the baby screamed with a hunger that tore at his heart. Thomas had been crying for 2 hours straight, refusing the bottle Ethan had tried to give him 4 separate times. The milk was the right temperature. He had checked it against his wrist the way the doctor had shown him, but nothing seemed to work anymore. Sarah had been gone for 6 weeks now. Childbirth fever had taken her so quickly that Ethan still could not believe she would not walk through that door with her gentle smile and capable hands. She had been 22 years old, his wife of 2 years, and the only woman he had ever loved. Now he was 25 and completely lost, trying to care for an infant who needed things he did not know how to provide. The ranch was suffering too. Ethan had 12 head of cattle that needed tending, fences that required mending before spring, and a barn roof that leaked in 3 places. His nearest neighbor was 4 miles away, an older couple who had helped as much as they could those first few weeks, but they had their own struggles. Winter in Kansas was unforgiving, and 1882 had brought particularly harsh weather. Ethan walked back inside, closing the door against the cold, and tried the bottle again. Thomas turned his face away, his tiny features red and scrunched with distress. The baby was losing weight. Ethan could see it in his little face, feel it in how his son seemed lighter each day. Desperation clawed at his throat. He had posted a notice in town 3 weeks ago, asking for a woman who might be willing to help with the baby, offering room and board plus fair wages. 2 women had responded. The first had taken one look at the isolated ranch and the screaming infant and left within an hour. The second had stayed for 4 days before announcing she was engaged to a shopkeeper in town and could not possibly remain in a house alone with a single man, regardless of the circumstances. Ethan understood. He did. A woman's reputation mattered, especially out here where everyone knew everyone's business. But understanding did not help his son, who was wasting away before his eyes. He tried singing, something Sarah had done. His voice was rough and uncertain, but Thomas quieted for a moment, looking up at him with blue eyes that were so much like his mother's that Ethan felt his chest constrict. Then the crying started again, weaker now, which somehow seemed worse. The wind howled outside, and Ethan heard something that made him pause. Footsteps on the porch. Heavy, tired footsteps. He was not expecting anyone. People did not just wander out this way, especially not in weather like this. He shifted Thomas to one arm and grabbed the rifle he kept by the door, though he did not point it. When he opened the door, he found himself staring at a woman covered in snow, her dark cloak frosted white, her face pale with cold and exhaustion. "Please," she said, her voice hoarse. "I saw the light. I have been walking since morning. May I come in?" Ethan stepped back immediately, pulling the door wide. Whatever story this woman had, she needed warmth first. She stumbled inside, and he could see now that she was young, probably around his own age, with dark hair plastered to her face from melted snow and brown eyes that held a wariness he recognized. This was someone who had seen trouble. "Sit by the fire," he said, closing the door and setting the rifle aside. Thomas continued to cry, and the woman's gaze went immediately to the baby. "How old?" she asked, moving toward the fireplace but watching the infant. 3 months. Ethan followed her, jostling Thomas gently. "He will not take the bottle. Has not eaten properly in hours." The woman pulled off her wet cloak with shaking hands, revealing a simple brown dress that had seen better days. "May I?" she asked, holding out her arms. Ethan hesitated for only a second before handing over his son. The woman sat in the chair closest to the fire and examined Thomas with a practiced eye, feeling his forehead, looking at his color. "The milk, is it cow's milk?" she asked. "Yes, from our own cow." "How much water do you add?" Ethan blinked. "Water," the woman looked up at him. "Cow's milk is too rich for some babies. It needs to be diluted and warmed, but not too hot." She turned her attention back to Thomas, speaking softly to him, her voice low and soothing. The baby's cries diminished to whimpers. "I did not know," Ethan said, feeling foolish and grateful in equal measure. "Are you a midwife?" "No." The woman did not elaborate. "May I try feeding him with water added?" "Yes, please." Ethan went to prepare the bottle the way she described, half milk and half water, warmed over the stove. His hands shook slightly as he worked. This stranger had appeared out of a winter storm and seemed to know exactly what Thomas needed. When he brought the bottle back, she tested it against her own wrist, nodded, and offered it to Thomas. The baby turned his head away once, but she was patient, persistent, speaking to him in that same gentle voice. On the third try, Thomas latched onto the bottle and began to drink. Ethan felt his knees go weak with relief. He sank into the other chair, watching this woman he did not even know feed his son. Thomas drank eagerly, his little hands coming up to touch the bottle. "Thank you," Ethan said, his voice rough with emotion. "I thought I was losing him too." The woman glanced at him and he saw understanding in her eyes. She knew about loss. "You are not losing him. He is strong. He just needed the right food." They sat in silence for a few minutes, the only sounds the crackling fire and Thomas's hungry sucking at the bottle. Ethan studied the woman more carefully now. She was pretty in a quiet way, with delicate features and an air of competence that reminded him of Sarah, though they looked nothing alike. Her clothes were worn but clean, and she had a carpet bag that he had not noticed before sitting by the door, covered in snow. "I am Ethan Sanders," he said finally. "This is my son, Thomas. This is my ranch about 4 miles from Centralia." "Clara Cooper," she replied, not looking up from the baby. "I saw your notice in town about needing help with an infant." Ethan sat forward. "You came all the way out here in this weather because of the notice." "I came from further than you might think." Clara's voice was quiet. "I arrived in Centralia this morning on the train from Missouri. I went to the general store to ask about work, and the owner mentioned your situation. He said the last woman who tried to help had left 3 days ago. He offered to bring me out tomorrow when the weather cleared, but I could not wait." "Could not wait," Ethan frowned. "Why?" Clara was quiet for a moment, adjusting Thomas as he finished the bottle. She lifted him to her shoulder and patted his back gently, professionally. "Because I needed to leave town quickly, and because a baby who will not eat cannot wait for better weather." There was a story there, Ethan knew, but he also knew better than to push. Whatever had driven Clara Cooper to walk 4 miles through a January snowstorm was her business. What mattered was that she was here, and Thomas was finally eating. Thomas burped impressively, and Clara smiled for the first time. It transformed her face, made her look younger and less guarded. She held the baby against her chest, swaying slightly. "He is tired," she said. "He has exhausted himself crying. Where does he sleep?" "In a cradle in my room." "I will show you." Ethan stood, then hesitated. "Miss Cooper, are you saying you want the position? I should be clear about the terms. Room and board, $30 a month, and I can promise you will be treated with respect. I know it might seem improper, you staying here, but I give you my word as a gentleman that you have nothing to fear from me." Clara looked at him directly, and he saw something fierce in her eyes. "Mr. Sanders, I just walked 4 miles through a blizzard because I need this position as much as your son needs care. If you are offering me honest work and a safe place to stay, I accept. People can gossip all they want. I have survived worse than gossip. All right then, Ethan said, relieved and curious in equal measure. Let me show you where everything is. The house was small but well built, with 2 bedrooms, a main room that served as kitchen and sitting area, and a lean-to addition that Sarah had used for storage. Ethan showed Clara where Thomas slept, and she laid the baby down in his cradle with practiced ease. Thomas was already asleep, his face finally peaceful. "I can take the storage room," Clara said quietly, stepping out of Ethan's bedroom. "If you help me move a few things, I can make it comfortable." "Are you sure? The other bedroom has a proper bed. And you need to be close to Thomas at night," Clara pointed out. "The storage room is fine. I am just grateful to be out of the cold." They spent the next hour transforming the storage room into a bedroom. Ethan brought in the bed from the spare room, and Clara unpacked her carpet bag with efficient movements. She did not have much. 2 other dresses, a nightgown, a worn Bible, and a small wooden box she did not open. While she settled in, Ethan made dinner, heating up the stew he had prepared that morning. He was not much of a cook, but he had learned the basics of survival. When Clara emerged from her room, she had changed into dry clothes and brushed out her dark hair. She looked exhausted. "You should eat," Ethan said, ladling stew into 2 bowls, "and then sleep. You must be worn out from the walk." "I am," Clara admitted, sitting at the table. "But first we should discuss Thomas's care. How often have you been trying to feed him?" "Every 3 or 4 hours. That is good. With the watered milk he should do better. Does he sleep through the night?" "Not often." Ethan rubbed his face. "He wakes up crying. Sometimes I can settle him, sometimes not." "I will take the night feedings," Clara said firmly. "You need to sleep so you can manage the ranch." "I am a light sleeper. I will hear him." "Miss Cooper, that is not fair to you." "It is the job you are hiring me for," Clara said, meeting his eyes. "Let me do it." They ate in silence for a few minutes. The stew was simple but hot, and Clara ate like she had not had a decent meal in days. Ethan wondered again about her story, about what had brought her to Kansas in the middle of winter, but he held his questions. She would tell him when she was ready, or she would not. Either way, she had saved Thomas tonight, and for that he would be forever grateful. "I should warn you," Ethan said finally. "This ranch is not fancy. I do not have much help. It is mostly just me trying to keep things running. Since Sarah died, I have been falling behind. So if things seem a bit rough, a bit chaotic, that is why." "Sarah was your wife?" Clara asked gently. "Yes." "She died 6 weeks ago. Childbirth fever." Ethan's voice was flat. He still could not talk about it without feeling like the ground was disappearing beneath his feet. "She was everything. I do not know how to do this without her." Clara reached across the table and briefly touched his hand, a gesture of comfort. "You are doing it, though. You are keeping your son alive, keeping this ranch going. That is not nothing, Mr. Sanders." "Ethan," he said. "Please just call me Ethan. We are going to be living in the same house." Might as well drop the formalities. "All right. Ethan." Clara withdrew her hand. "And you can call me Clara." That night, Ethan lay in his bed listening to the wind howl outside and the quiet sounds of Clara settling into the storage room across the house. Thomas slept peacefully in his cradle, his belly finally full. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt something like hope. He did not know what had brought Clara Cooper to his door, did not know what she was running from or what secrets she carried. But she had walked through winter to get here, and she had known exactly what his son needed. That was enough for now. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. But tonight, his son was sleeping, and there was someone else in the house who could help carry the weight of all this grief and responsibility. Ethan closed his eyes and, for the first time since Sarah's death, slept through the night. The next morning brought clear skies and bitter cold. Ethan woke to the smell of coffee and something baking, which confused him until he remembered Clara. He dressed quickly and walked into the main room to find her at the stove. Thomas propped in a nest of blankets in the rocking chair, watching her with alert eyes. "Good morning," Clara said, glancing over her shoulder. "I hope you do not mind. I found flour and lard and made biscuits. Thomas ate an hour ago and has been content since." Ethan stood there trying to adjust to the sight of someone else in Sarah's kitchen, someone else caring for his son. It hurt and helped in equal measure. "I do not mind," he said. "Thank you." They ate breakfast together, and Clara asked practical questions about the ranch, about Thomas's routine, about what supplies they had and what they needed. She was organized and calm, making lists in her head, planning. It was exactly what Ethan needed, but had not been able to manage on his own. After breakfast, Ethan bundled up to go check on the cattle and repair the fence line in the north pasture. Clara stopped him at the door. "Before you go," she said, "I should tell you something about why I left Missouri so suddenly." Ethan waited, watching her gather her courage. "I was engaged to a man in Springfield," Clara said, her voice steady but her hands twisting in her apron. "Daniel Foster. We were supposed to marry in December. 2 weeks before the wedding, I discovered he already had a wife in St. Louis. A wife and 2 children he had never mentioned." Ethan felt anger rise in his chest at this unknown man who had hurt the woman now caring for his son. "When I confronted him," Clara continued, "he told me it did not matter, that his wife did not understand him, that he planned to leave her eventually. He expected me to simply accept this, to marry him anyway and be his second wife without the law or the church knowing." She looked up at Ethan, her brown eyes fierce. "I told him I would not. I ended the engagement and went to stay with my sister, but Daniel was well known in Springfield, from a wealthy family. He spread rumors that I was the one who had pursued him, that I had tried to trap him into marriage. Within a week, I could not walk down the street without people whispering. 'So you left,' Ethan said quietly. 'My sister gave me money for a train ticket, told me to go somewhere I could start fresh. I chose Kansas because it was far enough away and because the territories are growing, and there is work for women willing to do it.'" Clara lifted her chin. "I am telling you this because if Daniel somehow finds out where I am and sends letters or tries to cause trouble, you should know the truth. I am not running from the law or from debt. I am running from a man who lied to me and then tried to ruin my reputation when I would not accept his lies." Ethan stepped closer. "Clara, I appreciate you telling me, but even if you had not, it would not matter. You saved my son last night. You gave him what he needed when I could not figure it out on my own. I do not care what some lying scoundrel in Missouri says about you. You are safe here. If this Daniel Foster shows up, he will have to answer to me." Clara's eyes glistened, but she blinked back tears. "Thank you. That means more than you know." "One more thing," Ethan added. "You mentioned people talking about impropriety, you being here alone with me. If it bothers you, if you worry about your reputation, we can see about getting someone to come stay too. Maybe an older woman from town, a companion." "No," Clara said firmly. "I do not care anymore what people think. I did everything right back in Springfield. I was proper and careful and concerned about my reputation, and it did not matter. Daniel destroyed it anyway with his lies. So now I am going to do what makes sense, what is right for me and for your son. Let them talk." Ethan found himself admiring her strength. She had been through hell and come out of it ready to fight. "All right then, I will be back by noon to check on you both." The winter days developed a routine. Ethan worked the ranch, mending fences and caring for cattle, cutting firewood and shoring up the barn. Clara cared for Thomas, and the baby thrived under her attention. Within a week, he had gained weight and started smiling. Within 2 weeks, he was sleeping longer stretches at night. Clara also transformed the house itself. She cleaned and organized, mended Ethan's clothes, cooked meals that were better than anything he had managed. She found Sarah's old sewing basket and spent evenings making new clothes for Thomas, who was growing quickly. They talked in the evenings after Thomas was asleep. Ethan told her about Sarah, about how they had met at a church social in Centralia, about how she had loved this ranch and had dreams of filling it with children and animals and life. Clara talked about growing up in Missouri, about her parents who had died of cholera when she was 16, about how her older sister had taken her in and cared for her. "Margaret gave me everything," Clara said one night, working on a quilt in the lamplight. After Daniel's betrayal, she did not hesitate. She said family takes care of family, and she gave me the money to leave even though she and her husband do not have much. "You must miss her," Ethan said. "I do, but I write to her every week and she writes back. She understands why I had to leave." Clara tied off a thread. "What about you? Do you have family, a brother in Colorado? We write occasionally, but we were never close. My parents died when I was 18, left me enough money to buy this land and start the ranch." Ethan stared into the fire. "Sarah was my family, and now Thomas." "And me," Clara said quietly. "If you want, I know I am just hired help, but I think of us as family now, you and Thomas." Ethan looked at her, really looked at her. In the warm lamplight, with her dark hair loose around her shoulders and her face soft with affection as she sewed clothes for his son, she was beautiful. And more than that, she was becoming essential. He could not imagine the house without her now, could not imagine caring for Thomas alone again. "I would like that," he said, his voice rough. "I would like us to be family." Something shifted between them in that moment, some acknowledgement of connection deeper than employer and employee. Clara felt it too. Ethan could see it in the way she looked at him, in the slight flush that colored her cheeks before she returned her attention to her sewing. February arrived with more snow and bitter winds. Ethan woke one morning to find Clara sick, feverish and coughing. She tried to get up to care for Thomas, but Ethan stopped her. "You are staying in bed," he said firmly. "I can manage Thomas for a day. But the baby I know what he needs now, thanks to you. Stay in bed, Clara. Let yourself be taken care of for once." He spent the day juggling ranch work and baby care, feeding Thomas the diluted milk Clara had taught him to prepare, changing diapers, soothing the baby when he fussed. It was exhausting, and it gave him new appreciation for everything Clara did. That evening he brought her soup and sat on the edge of her bed while she ate. Her room was small but cozy. She had made it her own with her few possessions, a scarf draped over the lamp to soften the light, her Bible on a small table she had found somewhere. "How is Thomas?" Clara asked, her voice hoarse. "He is fine, fed and changed and sleeping." Ethan hesitated, then reached out and felt her forehead, still warm but not burning. "How are you?" "I will be all right. It is just a cold." Clara set down the soup bowl. "I am sorry to be a burden." "You are not a burden. Clara, you walked 4 miles through a blizzard to help my son. You have taken care of both of us for a month now. Let me take care of you for a day or two." She smiled weakly. "You are a good man, Ethan Sanders. Sarah was lucky to have you." "I was the lucky one," Ethan said. Then, before he could stop himself, "And I am lucky to have you here now." Clara's eyes met his, and something passed between them, something warm and fragile and frightening. Ethan pulled back, standing quickly. "I should let you rest," he said. That night, lying in his own bed with Thomas sleeping peacefully in the cradle beside him, Ethan had to be honest with himself. He was developing feelings for Clara. Real feelings, not just gratitude or appreciation. He looked forward to seeing her each morning, missed her when he was out working on the ranch, found himself telling her things he had never told anyone but Sarah. It felt like a betrayal. Sarah had been gone less than 3 months. How could he be thinking about another woman already? But he was. He could not deny it anymore. Clara recovered from her cold within a few days, and life returned to normal. But the awareness between them had changed. Ethan caught her watching him sometimes, and she would look away quickly, a blush coloring her cheeks. He found himself touching her more small gestures like handing her a cup of coffee or steadying her when she slipped on the ice, and each touch sent warmth through him. March arrived with the promise of spring. The snow began to melt, and the days grew longer. Thomas was nearly 5 months old now, a chubby, happy baby who smiled at everyone and had started trying to roll over. He clearly adored Clara, laughing when she played with him, reaching for her when she walked into a room. One afternoon, Ethan came back from checking the cattle to find Clara in the yard, hanging laundry on the line. The wind whipped her dark hair around her face, and she was singing softly to herself. Thomas was nearby in a basket, bundled warmly, watching her with devoted eyes. Ethan stood there for a moment, just watching them, and felt his heart crack open. This was what he wanted. Not just help with the baby or someone to cook and clean. He wanted Clara, wanted her to stay not as hired help but as something more. Wanted to build a life with her, to give Thomas a mother who clearly already loved him, to have someone to share his days and nights with again. But it was too soon. Way too soon. And Clara had been so badly hurt by her former fiancé. The last thing she needed was another man complicating her life, especially a man who was technically her employer. "Ethan," Clara had noticed him standing there, "is everything all right?" "Yes," he said, walking over. "Everything is fine. The cattle are good. I was just thinking how nice it is to see you two out enjoying the sunshine. It feels like spring might actually come eventually," Clara said, pinning up one of Thomas's small shirts. "I was starting to wonder if winter would last forever. Kansas winters can feel that way." Ethan knelt beside the basket, running a finger down Thomas's cheek. The baby grabbed his hand and held on, gurgling happily. "He is getting so big." "He is thriving," Clara agreed. "You should be proud. You have given him a good home, kept him safe and loved through a terrible time." "We have," Ethan corrected. "We have given him a good home. I could not have done this without you, Clara." She looked at him, and the air between them felt charged, heavy with things unsaid. For a moment, Ethan thought about saying it all, about telling her how he felt, about asking her to stay forever. But the moment passed, and Clara turned back to the laundry. That Sunday, they went to church in Centralia for the first time since Clara had arrived. Ethan had been avoiding it, not wanting to face the town's sympathy and curiosity. But Clara pointed out that they needed supplies, and it would be good for people to see that Thomas was healthy and well cared for. The reaction in town was mixed. Some people greeted them warmly, cooing over Thomas and thanking Clara for her kindness in helping Ethan. Others whispered and stared, clearly disapproving of the arrangement. Ethan heard one woman say something about unseemly and saw Clara's shoulders stiffen. After church, they went to the general store. The owner, Harold Morrison, was a kind man in his 50s who had been helpful when Ethan first posted the notice looking for help. "Good to see you folks," Harold said, coming around the counter. "And young Thomas is looking well. Clara, you have worked wonders with this family." "Thank you, Mr. Morrison," Clara said quietly. "I hope the position is working out for you," Harold continued. "Ethan is a good man, despite what some folks might whisper." "I know he is," Clara said firmly. "And the position is working out very well." They bought supplies and headed back to the ranch. In the wagon with Thomas bundled between them, Clara was quiet. "I am sorry," Ethan said finally. "About the gossip, I know it is hard." "I told you I do not care what people think anymore," Clara said, but her voice was tight. "You say that, but it still hurts. I know it does." Ethan guided the horses around a muddy patch. "Clara, if you want to leave, if this is too much, I will understand. I can give you a reference, help you find another position somewhere else." Clara turned to look at him, her brown eyes flashing. "Is that what you want, for me to leave?" "No," Ethan said immediately. "God, no. You are the best thing that has happened to Thomas and to me. But I do not want you to be unhappy. I do not want you to feel trapped here." "I am not unhappy," Clara said, "and I am not trapped. I am exactly where I want to be." They looked at each other, and Ethan saw everything he was feeling reflected in her eyes. She cared about him. More than as just an employer or a friend. The realization made his heart race. "Clara," he started, but she shook her head. "Do not say it," she said softly. "Not yet. It is too soon. You are still grieving, and I am still healing from what Daniel did. If we rush this, if we let ourselves feel things before we are ready, we could ruin everything." She was right. Ethan knew she was right, but he also knew what he felt, and it was not going away. "All right," he said. "Not yet. But someday," Clara smiled, and it was like the sun coming out. Someday. Spring came fully in April. The prairie bloomed with wildflowers, and the ranch work increased. Ethan hired 2 ranch hands to help with the cattle and the planting, young men from town who were reliable and hardworking. They helped build a bigger chicken coop and plant a kitchen garden, and their presence meant Ethan could spend more time close to the house. More time close to Clara. They still had not spoken about their feelings directly, but the awareness was always there. Ethan found excuses to stand near her, to help her hang laundry or carry water. Clara would brush past him in the kitchen, her hand lingering on his arm. They talked late into the evenings, sharing stories and dreams, learning each other in small increments. Thomas turned 6 months old and started sitting up on his own. He had 4 teeth coming in and would eat mashed vegetables along with his milk. He had a laugh that could light up a room and had become the center of both their worlds. One evening in late April, after Thomas was asleep, Clara and Ethan sat on the porch watching the sunset. The air was warm, carrying the scent of spring grass and flowers. It was the kind of evening Sarah had loved, and Ethan felt a pang of guilt for enjoying it with someone else. "You are thinking about her," Clara said quietly. "How did you know?" "You get a certain look, sad and far away." Clara rocked slowly in her chair. "It is all right to miss her, Ethan. It is all right to grieve. That does not mean you cannot also be happy now. Does it not feel wrong to you?" Ethan asked. "That I am sitting here with you, feeling the way I do, when she has been gone less than 6 months." Clara was quiet for a moment. "I think Sarah would want you to be happy. She would want Thomas to have a mother. From everything you have told me about her, she was a generous, loving person. I do not think she would want you to suffer alone forever." "Maybe not forever," Ethan said, "but this soon." "There is no right timeline for grief," Clara said. "You feel what you feel when you feel it. The question is not whether it is too soon to have feelings. The question is whether you are ready to act on them." Ethan turned to look at her. In the fading light, she was beautiful, strong and kind, and everything he had not known he needed. "Are you ready?" Clara met his eyes. "I am falling in love with you, Ethan Sanders. I did not plan to. I did not want to so soon after everything with Daniel. But I am. I love you and I love Thomas, and I want to build a life here if you will have me." Ethan's breath caught. He had known, had felt it, but hearing her say it made it real in a way that was both terrifying and wonderful. "I am falling in love with you too," he said. "I have been for weeks now. I did not know how to tell you. I was afraid it was too soon. afraid of dishonoring Sarah's memory, afraid you would think I was just looking for a replacement mother for Thomas. Is that what I am to you? Clara asked. A replacement? No, Ethan said firmly. You are nothing like Sarah. You are your own person, with your own strengths and gifts. I do not want you to be Sarah. I want you to be Clara, the woman who walked through winter to help my son, the woman who makes me laugh and challenges me and has brought this house back to life. Clara stood up, and Ethan did too. They faced each other in the twilight, both of them trembling slightly. I want to court you properly, Ethan said. I want to do this right. I want everyone in town to know that you are important to me, that this is not just some arrangement of convenience. People will talk even more, Clara warned. Let them talk. I do not care. Ethan reached out and took her hand, the first time he had done so deliberately, not just in passing. Her fingers were warm and strong in his. I want a future with you, Clara. I want to marry you if you will have me. Not now, not right away, but eventually. When we are both ready. Clara squeezed his hand. I want that too, more than anything. They stood there holding hands as the stars came out, and Ethan felt peace settle over him for the first time since Sarah's death. This was not betrayal. This was life continuing, healing happening, love returning when he had thought it was lost forever. The courtship was both strange and wonderful. They already lived together, already knew each other's daily habits and quirks, but they also took time to be deliberate about their relationship. On Sundays, after church, they would walk together through Centralia with Thomas, making their intentions clear to the town. Ethan brought Clara flowers from the prairie. Clara made his favorite meals and left little notes for him to find. They took it slowly with physical affection, mindful of propriety and their own healing. A held hand, a brief kiss on the cheek, sitting close together in the evenings. Each touch was precious, building toward something deeper. In May, Ethan's brother Robert wrote from Colorado saying he was getting married. The letter was brief, almost perfunctory, but it made Ethan think about his own future, his own marriage plans. I want to marry you in the fall, he told Clara one evening, if that is all right with you. October maybe, when the weather is nice but not too hot. Clara looked up from the shirt she was mending. October, she repeated, testing the word. That would be 9 months since we met. A good amount of time. More than enough time to be sure, Ethan agreed, though I am already sure. So am I, Clara said. She set aside her mending and came to sit beside him. I never thought I would want to marry again after Daniel, but this is different. You are different. You are honest and kind, and you never try to be anything other than what you are. I love you, Ethan said, the words coming easier each time he said them. I love how you are with Thomas, how you sing while you work, how you always know the right thing to say when I am struggling. I love your strength and your courage and the way you look at the world. I love you too, Clara said. I love your dedication to your son, your work ethic, the way you always try to do what is right even when it is hard. I love this ranch and this life we are building together. They kissed then, properly kissed for the first time. It was sweet and tender and full of promise. When they pulled apart, both of them were smiling. October, Clara said. We should talk to the preacher in town, make sure he can marry us. We will, Ethan promised. And I will write to your sister, ask for her blessing. I want to do this properly, everything the way it should be. The summer was busy. The ranch thrived under Ethan's care and the help of his hired hands. Clara planted a large garden that promised a good harvest. Thomas grew and changed daily, developing a personality that was equal parts sweet and mischievous. He had learned to crawl and was constantly getting into things, making them both laugh and run after him. In July, Clara's sister Margaret wrote back, giving her blessing for the marriage and enclosing a family heirloom, a simple gold locket that had belonged to their mother. Clara cried when she opened the package, and Ethan held her while she explained that she had never expected to have anything from her old life again. "You are starting a new life," Ethan reminded her, "but you do not have to leave the old one completely behind. The good parts, the people who loved you, they come with you." They planned a simple wedding. Just family, the few friends they had made in Centralia, a ceremony at the church followed by a meal at the ranch. Clara sewed herself a new dress, pale blue with lace at the collar, and Ethan bought a new suit. They were not wealthy, but they had enough, and more importantly, they had each other. In September, Daniel Foster showed up. Ethan was in the barn when he heard the sound of a horse and buggy arriving. He walked out to see a well-dressed man climbing down, looking around the ranch with an expression of disdain. Clara was at the clothesline with Thomas playing nearby, and when she saw the man, she went completely still. "Clara," the man called out, "we need to talk." Ethan reached them in a few long strides, placing himself between Clara and the stranger. "Who are you?" "Daniel Foster," the man said, as if that should mean something. "I am Clara's fiancé." "Former fiancé," Clara said, her voice cold. "And you have no business here, Daniel." "I have every business here," Daniel said. "I came to bring you home. You have had your little adventure, made your point. Now it is time to stop this nonsense and return to Missouri where you belong." Ethan felt rage building in his chest. "Miss Cooper does not belong to you. She never did. And she is not going anywhere." Daniel looked at Ethan as if really seeing him for the first time. "And who are you?" "Ethan Sanders. This is my ranch. Clara works for me." "Works for you," Daniel repeated, his tone making it clear what he thought of that arrangement. "Clara, this is beneath you. Living out here in the middle of nowhere, caring for another woman's child, living in sin with a widower." "I am not living in sin," Clara said, her voice shaking with anger. "And how I choose to live my life is none of your concern. You lied to me, Daniel. You had a wife. You expected me to be your secret second bride. When I refused, you destroyed my reputation. Why would I ever come back to you?" "Because I love you," Daniel said, and he actually sounded sincere. "Because I have left my wife. I am getting a divorce. We can be married properly now, the way we planned." Clara laughed, a harsh sound. "You left your wife, the mother of your children, and you think that makes you a better person. Daniel, it makes you worse. It proves that you care about no one but yourself." "I did it for you," Daniel insisted. "I have been looking for you for months. I knew you came to Kansas, and I have been checking every town. When I heard about a Clara Cooper working for a rancher with a baby, I knew it had to be you." He stepped forward. "Come home with me. I will make this right." "No," Clara said. "I do not love you, Daniel. I'm not sure I ever really did. I loved the man I thought you were, but that man did not exist. Now leave. You are not welcome here." Daniel's expression hardened. "I am not leaving without you. I have come too far, spent too much money tracking you down." "You owe me, Clara." "She owes you nothing," Ethan said, his voice deadly quiet. "And you are going to leave now, or I am going to make you leave." Daniel looked at Ethan, sizing him up. Ethan was taller and broader, hardened by years of ranch work. Daniel, for all his fine clothes and smooth talk, was a city man, soft and unused to physical confrontation. "This is not over," Daniel said finally. "I will go to the sheriff. Tell him you are holding Clara against her will." "Do that," Ethan said. "The sheriff knows Clara, knows she is here by choice. He will laugh you out of his office." He took another step forward. "But if you ever come near her again, if you ever try to hurt her or spread more lies about her, you will answer to me. You understand?" Daniel stared at him for a long moment, then turned and climbed back into his buggy. "You will regret this, Clara," he called as he snapped the reins. "Both of you will." They watched him drive away, and Clara started to shake. Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly while Thomas toddled over and grabbed at their legs, sensing something was wrong. "He is gone," Ethan said. "He cannot hurt you any more." "He found me," Clara said against his chest. "I thought I was safe here, thought I had left all that behind." "You are safe here," Ethan promised. "I will not let him near you again." But even as he said it, Ethan worried. Men like Daniel Foster did not give up easily, especially when their pride was wounded. They would need to be careful. That evening, Ethan rode into town and talked to the sheriff, a grizzled man named Tom Hudson who had known Ethan for years. Tom listened to the story and nodded thoughtfully. "I will keep an eye out," Tom said. "And I will make sure everyone knows that Miss Cooper is under your protection and here by choice. If this Daniel fellow comes back, he will not find any allies in Centralia." "Thank you," Ethan said. "You are planning to marry her, I hear," Tom said. "October wedding." "That is the plan." "Good. She is a fine woman. You are lucky to have found her." Ethan rode back to the ranch feeling somewhat reassured, but when he arrived, he found Clara packing her things. "What are you doing?" he asked, standing in the doorway of her room. "I should leave," Clara said, not looking at him. "Daniel knows where I am now. He might come back, might cause trouble for you and Thomas. If I leave, if I go somewhere else, he will follow me and leave you alone." "No," Ethan said firmly. "You are not leaving. Clara, look at me." She turned, her eyes red from crying. "You are not running again," Ethan said. "I will not let you. This is your home now. Thomas needs you. I need you. We are getting married in a month, remember? You are not going anywhere." "But Daniel is a coward and a bully, and I am not afraid of him." Ethan crossed the room and took her hands. "I talked to the sheriff. Everyone in town knows you are here by choice, knows we are engaged. Daniel has no power here, and if he tries anything, he will find out what happens when you threaten a rancher's family in Kansas." "I do not want you to get hurt because of me," Clara said, "and I do not want you to spend your life running from a man who does not deserve a single thought from you." Ethan pulled her close. "Stay. Marry me. Let us build the life we have been planning. That is the best revenge against Daniel. Living well, being happy, showing him that his lies and manipulation did not destroy you." Clara leaned against him, and he felt the tension slowly leave her body. "All right," she said finally. "I will stay. But if he comes back, we will handle it together," Ethan promised. Daniel did not come back. Over the next few weeks, they heard through the town gossip that he had stayed in Centralia for a few days, trying to find sympathy and support for his claim on Clara. But the townsfolk, who had watched Clara care for Thomas all these months, who had seen the love growing between her and Ethan, sided with the local rancher. Daniel left Kansas, and good riddance. October arrived with cool, clear weather and trees ablaze with color. The week before the wedding, Clara's sister Margaret arrived from Missouri, bringing her husband and their 3 children. It was a joyful reunion, Clara crying happy tears as she embraced her sister. "You look wonderful," Margaret said, holding Clara at arm's length. "Happy. I am so glad you found this place, these people." "I am happy," Clara agreed. "Happier than I ever thought possible. The wedding day was perfect. The church was decorated with fall flowers, and the small gathering of friends and neighbors filled the pews. Thomas, now 10 months old, sat in the front row with Margaret, babbling and waving at his father. Ethan stood at the altar in his new suit, watching Clara walk down the aisle on her brother-in-law's arm, and felt his heart overflow. She was beautiful in her blue dress, carrying wildflowers from the prairie, her face glowing with happiness. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They exchanged vows before God and their community, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Ethan kissed Clara with all the love and gratitude in his heart, and the church erupted in applause. The celebration back at the ranch was lively and warm. Margaret had helped Clara prepare food, and neighbors brought dishes to share. There was music and dancing, and everyone took turns holding Thomas, who loved the attention. As the sun set and guests began to leave, Ethan and Clara stood together in the yard, watching the last of the wagons roll away. Thomas was asleep in Margaret's arms inside the house. "We did it," Clara said, leaning against her husband. The word felt wonderful. "Husband, we did," Ethan agreed. "You are Clara Sanders now." "I like the sound of that." Clara turned to face him. "Thank you for not giving up on me, for believing I was worth fighting for." "You were always worth fighting for," Ethan said. "From the moment you walked through that winter storm to help my son, you were worth everything." They kissed under the stars, two people who had found each other when they needed it most, who had built love out of loss and hope out of heartbreak. That night, for the first time, they shared a bed as husband and wife. It was tender and sweet, and everything a wedding night should be. Clara fell asleep in Ethan's arms, safe and loved, finally home. Margaret and her family stayed for a week, helping around the ranch and spending time with Thomas. Before she left, Margaret pulled Clara aside. "I am so proud of you," Margaret said. "You could have let Daniel destroy you. Instead, you walked away and built a new life. You found love again, found a family. That takes incredible courage." "I had good examples," Clara said, hugging her sister. "You and Mother taught me to be strong." "Write to me often," Margaret said. "Let me know how you are, how Thomas is growing. And when you have more children, I want to know immediately." "More children," Clara repeated, smiling. "That is the plan. Ethan wants a houseful. So do you, I think," Margaret said knowingly. "Yes," Clara admitted. "I do." Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. The ranch continued to prosper, and Ethan took on more cattle and hired additional help. Clara managed the household with skill and grace, and Thomas thrived under their joint care. In the spring of 1883, Clara discovered she was pregnant. Ethan was overjoyed, and even Thomas seemed excited, though at 16 months old he did not really understand what was happening. The pregnancy was easier than Sarah's had been, and in November, Clara gave birth to a healthy baby boy they named James. Thomas was fascinated by his new brother, always wanting to help feed him or rock him. 2 years later, Clara had twin daughters, Ruth and Rose. The house was full of noise and laughter and the constant chaos of young children. Ethan built an addition, expanding the house to accommodate their growing family. In 1888, when Thomas was 6 and starting to help with small ranch chores, Clara had another son, Samuel. She told Ethan that 5 children were enough, and he agreed, content with their large, boisterous family. Thomas grew into a kind, responsible young man who took his role as oldest brother seriously. He remembered nothing of his mother Sarah, but Clara made sure he knew about her, telling him stories of the woman who had given him life. Thomas loved Clara as his mother because she was, in every way that mattered. The years passed in a blur of seasons and milestones. First steps and first words, birthday celebrations and Christmas mornings, hard work and simple pleasures. Ethan and Clara grew older together, their love deepening with each passing year. They faced challenges, as all families do. A drought in 1890 that threatened the cattle. A bad winter in 1893 that tested their reserves. The normal illnesses and accidents that came with raising children on a ranch. But they faced everything together, their partnership strong and true. In 1897, 15 years after they married, Ethan and Clara sat on the porch one evening watching their children play in the yard. Thomas was 21 now, a man in his own right, helping Ethan run the ranch. James was 14, the twins were 12, and Samuel was 9. They were all healthy, happy, loved. "You ever think about that night?" Clara asked, taking Ethan's hand. "When I walked up to your door in the snowstorm, all the time," Ethan said. "I think about how desperate I was, how lost. I think about how you appeared like an answer to a prayer I did not know how to say." "I was lost too," Clara reminded him, "running from a man who had hurt me, not sure where I was going or what I would find." "And you found us," Ethan said. "You found Thomas and me, and you stayed. You built this life with us." "Best decision I ever made," Clara said. "Walking through that winter, coming to this ranch, falling in love with you and Thomas, all of it led to this." She gestured at their children, at the ranch, at the life they had built together. "I loved Sarah," Ethan said quietly. "I will always love her, always be grateful for the time we had and for Thomas." "I know," Clara said. "And that is all right. You do not have to choose between us. Love is not a finite resource. You can love her memory and love me at the same time." "You are wise, Clara Sanders," Ethan said, bringing her hand to his lips. "I am lucky," Clara corrected. "Lucky that you needed help. Lucky that I was brave enough to walk through winter to find you. Lucky that you gave me a chance." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Thomas was teaching his younger siblings to rope a fence post, and their laughter carried on the evening breeze. "No regrets?" Ethan asked. "Not a single one," Clara said. "You?" "Only that I did not meet you sooner," Ethan said. "But then, maybe we met exactly when we were supposed to. Maybe we both needed to go through what we did to be ready for each other." "Maybe," Clara agreed. She leaned her head on his shoulder. "I am happy, Ethan, truly, deeply happy. I have everything I ever wanted and more." "So am I," Ethan said. He wrapped his arm around her, pulling her close. "So am I." As the stars came out and their children's laughter filled the air, Ethan thought about the journey that had brought them here. The loss of Sarah, the desperation of those early months alone with Thomas, the winter storm that had brought Clara to his door. Every moment of pain and fear and uncertainty had led to this, to a life so full and rich that sometimes he could hardly believe it was real. But it was real. The woman in his arms was real, her warmth and strength and love. The children playing in the yard were real, the fruit of their love and commitment. The ranch around them, thriving and prosperous, was real. Clara had walked through winter and become his answer, his partner, his love. She had brought life back to a house that had been dying, had given Thomas a mother and Ethan a reason to hope again. She had built a family with him, brick by brick, day by day, year by year. And now, surrounded by everything they had created together, Ethan knew with absolute certainty that walking through that winter storm was the bravest, best thing Clara had ever done. Just as letting her in, letting himself love again, was the bravest, best thing he had ever done. "Come on," Clara said, standing and pulling him to his feet. "Let us get these children inside and fed before they run wild all night." Ethan laughed and followed her, calling to the children. They came running, a stampede of energy and noise and love. Thomas scooped up Samuel. James chased the twins, and they all tumbled into the house together, a family in every sense of the word. That night, after the children were in bed and the house was quiet, Ethan and Clara lay together in their room, the same room where Thomas had been born, where Sarah had died, where so much life had happened. "I love you," Ethan whispered in the darkness. "I love you too," Clara whispered back. "Always and forever." They fell asleep holding each other, two souls who had found their way through winter into spring, through loss into love, through loneliness into a life fuller than either had imagined possible. The next morning brought a new day, and with it the continuation of the life they had built together. Ethan woke early to do the morning chores. Clara started breakfast, and one by one the children woke and filled the house with noise. It was ordinary and perfect, exactly what both of them had been searching for all those years ago. Thomas helped his father with the cattle, showing the responsibility and skill that Ethan had worked hard to teach him. James and Samuel fed the chickens and gathered eggs, arguing good-naturedly about whose turn it was to do which task. Ruth and Rose helped their mother in the kitchen, learning the skills they would need to run their own homes someday. After breakfast, when the children scattered to their various tasks and lessons, Clara and Ethan stole a moment alone in the barn. 21 years, Clara said, leaning against a stall. Thomas is 21 today, a man grown. Hard to believe, Ethan agreed. Seems like yesterday he was that tiny screaming infant, refusing to eat, and you walked through a blizzard to save him. We saved each other, Clara said. All three of us. Ethan pulled her into his arms, kissing her softly. Even after all these years, touching her still sent warmth through him, still made him grateful for every day they had together. I want to do something special for Thomas's birthday, Ethan said. He has been talking about expanding the herd, taking on more responsibility. I thought I might make him a partner, Sanders and Son, Clara smiled. He would love that. He has worked so hard, learned everything you have taught him. He deserves it. That evening, the family gathered for a birthday supper. Clara had made all of Thomas's favorite foods, and there was cake for dessert. After they ate, Ethan stood and cleared his throat. Thomas, he said, and his eldest son looked up. You are 21 today, a man by any measure. You have been working this ranch alongside me for years now, proving yourself capable and trustworthy. Your mother and I are proud of you. Thomas ducked his head, embarrassed by the praise but pleased too. So I have decided, Ethan continued, to make you a full partner in the ranch. Sanders and Son. What do you say? Thomas's head snapped up, his eyes wide. Father, are you serious? Completely serious, Ethan said. This ranch will be yours someday. Might as well start learning how to run it now. Thomas stood and crossed to his father, shaking his hand firmly before pulling him into a hug. Thank you. I will not let you down. I know you will not, Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. Clara watched them, her heart full. This young man, who she had first met as a starving infant, had become hers in every way that mattered. She had raised him, loved him, watched him grow into someone she was incredibly proud of. And the fact that Ethan was secure enough to honor her role in Thomas's life, to call her Thomas's mother without qualification, meant everything. The celebration continued late into the evening, with music and stories and laughter. The younger children eventually fell asleep in various chairs and corners, and Clara and Ethan carried them to bed. In their own room finally, Clara sat at her dressing table brushing out her hair while Ethan watched her, as he had done countless nights before. What are you thinking? Clara asked, catching his gaze in the mirror. That I am the luckiest man alive, Ethan said. That I cannot imagine my life without you. That every day I wake up grateful you walked through that winter storm. Clara set down her brush and turned to face him. I am grateful too. For you, for our children, for this life. I never knew I could be this happy, Ethan. After everything with Daniel, I thought maybe I was not meant for this kind of love, this kind of family. But then I found you, and you showed me I was wrong. Ethan joined her, kneeling beside her chair and taking her hands. We have built something good here, Clara, something worth all the pain it took to get here. Yes, Clara agreed, we have. They held each other in the quiet of their room, two people who had been broken and had healed together, who had taken their separate wounds and turned them into a shared strength. The years continued to roll by, bringing changes and challenges and blessings. Thomas eventually married a teacher from town, a smart, kind woman named Elizabeth, and they built a house on the far side of the ranch property. They had 3 children of their own, making Ethan and Clara grandparents. James went to college in Topeka, studying agriculture, and returned to work the ranch with new ideas and modern techniques. The twins both married, Ruth to a doctor and Rose to a lawyer, and settled in Centralia. Samuel, the baby, showed an interest in horses and became known throughout Kansas for his skill in training them. Through it all, Ethan and Clara remained the center, the foundation of the family they had built. They grew older together, their hair turning gray, their steps slowing, but their love never diminishing. In 1912, on a warm spring afternoon, Ethan and Clara sat on the porch of their ranch house, now expanded and improved over the years, but still fundamentally the same place where Clara had first arrived 30 years earlier. They were both in their 60s now, still healthy and active but feeling their age. 30 years, Clara said, echoing Ethan's thoughts. Since I walked up to that door in the middle of a blizzard. Best day of my life, Ethan said. Well, one of them. Marrying you was pretty good too. And the births of all our children, Clara laughed. So many good days, we have been blessed, Ethan. Yes, he agreed, more than I ever deserved. More than either of us deserved, Clara corrected, but we worked for it too. We chose each other every day, through the hard times and the good times. That matters. Around them, the ranch bustled with activity. Thomas and James were out with the cattle. Samuel was in the corral training a young stallion. Grandchildren ran through the yard, their shouts and laughter a constant soundtrack. Ruth and Rose were visiting with their families, and the house was full. This was what Clara had walked through winter to find, though she had not known it at the time. This family, this love, this life. It had all started with a desperate cowboy and a screaming baby and a winter storm that had driven her to their door. You ever wonder what would have happened if you had not seen our light that night? Ethan asked. If you had gone somewhere else, found different work? Sometimes, Clara admitted, but I do not think it would have worked out as well. I think we were meant to find each other, Ethan. I think God or fate or whatever you want to call it brought me to your door that night because we needed each other. I needed you, Ethan said, desperately. I was drowning and you threw me a rope. And I needed you too, Clara said. I needed a place to heal, a family to love, a man who would be honest and true. We saved each other. They sat in silence for a while, comfortable with each other as only people who have spent decades together can be. The sun moved across the sky, casting long shadows across the prairie. I want you to know, Ethan said eventually, that these 30 years with you have been the best of my life, better than anything I could have imagined. You made me whole again, Clara. You gave me a reason to keep going when I thought I could not. You loved my son and gave me more children and built this family with me. I could not have done any of it without you. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. And I want you to know that you gave me everything I ever wanted. A home, a family, a love that was real and lasting. You showed me that not all men are like Daniel, that I could trust again. You gave me a life I am proud of. Ethan reached over and took her hand, their fingers intertwining as naturally as breathing. Here is to 30 more years, he said. Clara laughed through her tears. That would make us 90. I do not know if we will make it that long. Then here is to however long we have, Ethan amended. To every day, every moment, every breath we get to share. To us, Clara said, squeezing his hand. To us, Ethan echoed. As the evening came on and family members began gathering for supper, Clara and Ethan stood and walked inside together, hand in hand, the way they had done for 30 years. They were surrounded by love, by family, by the life they had built from nothing. Clara thought back to that desperate girl walking through a winter storm, unsure of her future, running from her past. She wished she could tell that girl that everything would be all right, that the light in the distance would lead to more happiness than she could imagine. But maybe that girl had known, on some level. Maybe that was why she had kept walking, kept pushing through the cold and the snow to reach that distant farmhouse. Maybe some part of her had recognized that she was walking toward her destiny, toward the man and the child who would become her whole world. The family gathered around the table, a loud and chaotic group ranging from Ethan and Clara down to their youngest grandchild, just 2 years old. They held hands to say grace, a tradition Clara had instituted years ago, and in that moment of connection and gratitude, she felt overwhelmed by how blessed they were. "Thank you, Lord," Ethan said, his voice carrying over the group, "for this food, for this family, and for the woman who walked through winter 30 years ago and became my answer to prayers. I did not know how to pray. Amen." "Amen," the family chorused. As they ate and talked and laughed together, Clara caught Ethan's eye across the table. He smiled at her, that special smile that was hers alone, and she smiled back. 30 years of smiles like that, of moments of connection and understanding, of love given and received. It was more than enough. It was everything. The evening wore on, children were put to bed, and eventually the house quieted. Clara and Ethan prepared for bed in their room, moving around each other with the practiced ease of long partnership. "Happy anniversary," Ethan said as they climbed into bed. It was not their actual anniversary, which was in October, but the anniversary of the night they met felt just as important. "Happy anniversary," Clara replied, settling against his side. "Here is to many more." "To many more," Ethan agreed. They fell asleep as they had done for 30 years together, safe, loved. Outside, the Kansas wind blew across the prairie, but inside, all was warm and peaceful. The story that had begun with a desperate father and his starving son, with a woman brave enough to walk through winter, had become a legacy. Thomas and his brothers and sisters, the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren that would come, they were all part of that story. They were all the result of one woman's courage on a winter night, of one man's willingness to let love heal his heart again. Clara had walked through winter and become Ethan's answer. But he had been her answer too, had given her everything she needed when she needed it most. They had saved each other, built a life together, created a family that would continue for generations. And it all started with an infant's cry, a winter storm, and 2 broken people who found each other at exactly the right moment. That was the magic of it, Clara thought as sleep claimed her. Not that they had fallen in love, though that was wonderful, but that they had been exactly what each other needed, had come together at precisely the moment when they could help each other heal. The timing had been perfect, ordained somehow, meant to be. She had walked through winter and found home, found love, found everything, and she would not change a single moment of it. Years later, when Ethan and Clara had both passed on peacefully in their old age, surrounded by family and love, their story became legend in Centralia. People talked about the woman who had walked through a blizzard to help a rancher and his infant son, about the love that had grown from that desperate night, about the family they had built together. Thomas, who lived to be an old man himself, would tell his grandchildren and great-grandchildren about the night his mother Clara arrived, how she had saved his life and his father's heart, how she had made them whole. The ranch continued, passed down through the generations, a testament to what Ethan and Clara had built. And every winter, when the snow fell across the Kansas prairie, someone in the family would remember and tell the story again. The story of the cowboy who needed help with his infant son, and the woman who walked through winter and became his answer, his love, his everything. It was a story of survival and healing, of courage and hope, of two people who found each other when they needed it most and built a love that lasted a lifetime and beyond. And it all began with a single step into a winter storm, toward a light in the distance, toward an unknown future that turned out to be exactly right. The end.